Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. We are back again with another guest who's most certainly a global impact maker within her own right. So let's take a few moments to introduce her to the show. Now, my guest today, ladies and gentlemen, is an entrepreneur, career development facilitator, trainer, certified educator, the host of Strategic Minds TV, and I'm sure we're going to hear something about that later, and a regular contributor for the Trenton 365 radio show. She has more than 18 years of combined experience in the areas of learning and development, education, marketing, and leadership, and has worked with public, private, startup, non-profit companies, as well as in secondary and higher education. Through her business, K-Ferg Training, Kimberly speaks, trains, consults, and provides customized employee leadership development solutions and coaching for countless organizations. She is passionate about helping others align passion, purpose, competencies, and relevant action to yield meaningful results. And through her career development book, Marketing You, Be Strategic, her online video series, Strategic Minds TV, her radio segment, Your Career Matters, and her professional development workshops for companies and conferences, she continues to inspire, motivate, and equip others with the tools they need to recognize their worth, increase productivity, and take charge of their professional lives. And she's here today, ladies and gentlemen, to talk to us about some of the problems, some of the obstacles, misconceptions, pitfalls, and fears surrounding the individuals and organizations she has a passion around helping the most. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome her to the show, Kimberly A. Ferguson. Kimberly, are you there?
I am here. Thank you so much.
Well, glad to have you on the show. It's been a long time coming. I know you've been very busy with your own show, which I already alluded to in your introduction. I'm sure we're going to hear some more about that. But with that said, let's just jump straight in, Kimberly. Can you briefly share with us, who is your perfect prospect? Who is it that you actually help?
My perfect prospect, that would have to be leaders of small to mid-sized organizations who are typically looking to increase productivity, strengthen their staff's performance, improve retention, and, of course, increase revenue.
Okay, that sounds very specific. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that and this specific group of people that you help. Because I know you do help many other people, but today's show is about these leaders of small to mid-sized organizations. So can you please share, with that in mind, 2 to 3 common obstacles that you find prevent them from strengthening their staff's performance, improving their retention, and increasing revenue?
One obstacle, and this is a big one as a learning and development consultant that I see quite often, and that's the belief that learning and development is a cure-all for every situation. So just because a staff or a team is encountering problems, yes, learning and development helps, but that's not the cure-all. Another obstacle that I see, and this is especially once they've contacted me to say, Kimberly, we'd like to implement some type of learning and development program, is not taking the appropriate action to support the process. So with learning and development, like everything else, there's a process. And my process is multi-step. There's several layers. And it does require the support and some action from the leaders. So those are 2 of the biggest obstacles I encounter. I think the last one, since you gave me 3 that I'm able to share, is a lack of self-awareness. So, and this is big when we're talking about leaders. Just the power of self-assessment is huge. And I talk about self-assessment quite a bit in my book, Marketing You, Be Strategic. But that lack of self-awareness ultimately results in that failure to take responsibility for one's role in their team missing its goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes absolute sense. And in fact, if we can just dig a little deeper into those obstacles that you just shared, how have you been able to help clients overcome some of the obstacles that you just shared with us? So, in other words, describe, if you will, a situation in which you've helped a client or an organization overcome at least one of those obstacles which you just shared with us, which led them to strengthen their staff's performance and improve retention and increase revenue. So if you could just share that with us, and obviously taking client confidentiality into mind, not sharing any names. If you could do that for us, Kimberly, that would be fantastic.
Okay, well, I have an example that actually encompasses the three. I had a client with which I was working who, number one, when they contacted me right away, it was the idea that, okay, my team is broken, fix it. So right away, I knew that the belief was that learning and development was supposed to fix the issues. The other part of that with this particular client was just because they expected me to fix the issues, I didn't really feel like they were prepared to support the process. And then finally, again, it was the blame game. So my team is broken, fix it. For me, one of the things I recognized in having conversations with this leader was that he wasn't taking responsibility for his role in some of the challenges that they were facing. So what did I do? How did I address that? Well, it all starts in the very beginning. One of the first things I do, I call it the discovery phase. It's that needs analysis phase, or that some folks call it the gap analysis, where we take a look at where we currently are, where we'd like to be, and what lies in the gap, what's missing. So we have an honest conversation. The other piece of that is being able to clearly set expectations for my client. So right away, I tell them, I'm not a magician. I can't fix an issue unless you and your team are committed to really being involved in the process, being involved in the learning, but not just the learning piece, being committed to taking the action needed to resolve whatever issue it is that they're encountering. And in that particular case, it was those heart-to-heart conversations. In that particular case, it was a conversation with leadership to make clear to them what I can do and what their responsibility is, but also their willingness for me to talk to their team. So during that discovery phase, it was my ability to sit down with different segments of the team, of different groups of the team, and being able to ask questions about how they felt about that gap. So where they were, understanding where their leadership wanted them to be, and why they felt like they were missing the mark. So being able to have those honest conversations. So for me to answer to that or the solution to that is authenticity. It's setting expectations. It's being very clear from the door about what I can offer, but also what's expected of the client in order to reach the results that they need.
That makes perfect sense. And I'm sure you're obviously just talking about one client, one situation, but this applies to several clients that you've helped over the years. So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
So with that said then, Kim, what could that client have done to avoid getting in that situation in the first place where it's so far down the line where they're saying, fix my staff?
Well, let me tell you, and I model it in what I just shared. I model what they should have done. They should have had that open communication from the beginning. They should have set very clear expectations. They should have ensured that their staff was aware of the goals that were set for them. See, me just saying, or the leader saying, okay, this is what I want you to accomplish, and not ensuring that the members of the team truly understand what the issues are, or what needs to be accomplished, what the expectations are. So being sure to set very clear expectations. The other thing that they missed, or that he missed, was there were issues that arose throughout. So, of course, the problems that I saw when I got there didn't occur overnight. He didn't address them as they were happening. So as opposed to just letting things go, really using those failures, those shortcomings, those challenges as teachable moments, and having an honest, authentic conversation with their teams, saying, these are the things that I'm looking for you to do. These are the problems that I'm seeing. How can we fix these? And involving the staff in the solution is huge. So if there's a problem that's occurring, not just saying, okay, this is how we're going to fix it. Instead, getting their feedback, because remember, they're all coming from different experiences. They have different education. There's so many different things that they bring to that table. And the power of differentiation, the power of our differences is really something that leaders can use as a tool. And I teach that in my trainings.
That's very powerful. So could you just, in bullet point form, re-summarize that answer, because there was just so much in there. So can you just give us some quick, sharp bullet points that summarizes that answer, and then we can move on?
some of the things that the leaders could have done or that the leaders could have done to avoid some of the issues, number one, set clear expectations. Make sure that your team is absolutely aware of what you expect of them. Number two, clear communication in the face of issues, not being afraid to have those difficult conversations. And number three, involving our staff in the solution as opposed to just giving them the solution. Make them a part of the solution.
18 years you've been in business, is that correct?
18 years of experience. So I have years of experience. I worked in corporate, I worked in higher education, secondary education, and now I have my business.
So during that 18-year span, I'm sure you've come across many popular misconceptions that your clients may have bought into, that they may believe to be true. So could you just share 2 to 3 popular misconceptions that they may have bought into that's preventing them from strengthening their staff's performance and improving retention and increasing their revenue?
Misconception one is a big one, and it's that someone else is to blame. So again, it's back to the blame game. It's back to a lack of accountability. It's an obstacle that we face, but it's also that misconception that it's not their fault. I'm a great manager, and it's everyone else. It's everyone else's issue. Number two would be that change can occur overnight. So when we think about the implementation of a learning and development program or some type of learning and development solution, oftentimes folks are looking for the solution to take hold overnight and their teams to be fixed and the issues to be resolved. And the reality is that just doesn't happen. It takes work from not only the team, but also leadership to ensure that some of the things that are broken in the team can be resolved.
Let's look at that blame factor that you just mentioned. What's the underlying reason behind that then, Kimberly? What do you think? Why do these leaders actually look to blame somebody else or something else outside of themselves? Could you just go a little bit deeper into that for us, please?
I think part of it has to do with the fact that, and the picture that I'm painting is such a grim one, right, to say that there's blame and they're not taking any responsibility. I don't want to say that. But what I do want to say is that oftentimes we don't see it. We see what others are doing, and we're not necessarily aware of the impact that our style might have on our team. So just a shift in style, a shift in approach could have all of the difference, can make all of the difference. Because one of the things that you mentioned previously is that I'm a Myers-Briggs Test Indicator certified practitioner, so I often think about personality type, and I think about style, and I think about the fact that sometimes I have to jump on the other side of the dichotomy in order to give somebody what they need in order to get the results that I need. So when I talk about blame, I'm talking about, as a leader, we have to take responsibility for our team's performance. We have to say, okay, what can I do as a leader to help them get a little bit better? Now, of course, learning and development, where I come in, is that piece where, not only are they looking at what they can do individually to help their team get better, but also what resources, what tools, what type of learning, what education, what teaching, what programs can be implemented at that organization to teach the team to better work with the leadership. So when we talk about that blame piece, it's just a matter of being more aware of the fact that even though you may be doing everything right, someone else may be receiving it a different way. Your delivery with Mary may go really well, and you may deliver that same message to Joe, and he may not receive it the same way. So taking accountability and saying, what can I do to be sure that when I reach Joe, he understands me?
Let's just talk a little bit about some of the unknown pitfalls that are out there within the mid-sized organizations that you help. If there are any leaders that are listening to this show right now and they're thinking to themselves, something, Kimberly, this sounds pretty simple. I can just go ahead and do this by myself. I can strengthen my staff's performance by myself. I can work on improving their retention by myself. And as far as increasing my revenue, I can do that on my own as well. Now, there's fundamentally nothing wrong with those trains of thoughts, but could you, with your expertise and with your experience, just please share a couple of unknown pitfalls that they should be aware of should they decide to do all of those things by themselves?
Well, the one thing that I would say, number one, is just to be sure that their goals are aligned with the goals of the organization. And when we talk about fixing some of these issues, so we talk about, the retention, we talk about increasing revenue, and we talk about improving performance. If you think about it, it all lines up to goals, or it oftentimes lines up to goal misalignment. My goals aren't aligning with that of my leader's goals for me, or those aren't aligning with the mission, vision, values of the organization. So what I would strongly suggest for someone who is thinking about, saying, what, I can fix this myself, take a clear look at goals. Take a look at the goals of the organization, the goals of that leader for that unit, and take a look at the goals of the team and be sure that those are aligning. Because if they're not aligning, then of course you're going to have people that are confused. You're going to have people that are missing the mark because they're not clear on what the goals are. The other pitfall that I've seen as far as people in this particular situation, a pitfall that I've seen has been that failed communication of strategy by the organization to its employees. So what do I mean by that? There's a goal that we have. There's strategy that we want to implement. And because it's not clearly communicated, people are missing the mark. So where do I come in? How do I help with that? Well, number one is helping with communication, helping to teach folks how to effectively communicate with each other. And not only that, as the team, being able to read those that are on the receiving end of the communication, being able to take responsibility. So now I'm putting the onus on the team to say, okay, I've received the message. I need to make sure that I've understood this in the way that it's been delivered. So how do they do that? I teach people how. I teach them, I give them strategies, what they should do and how they should do it to ensure that they understand the message that's been given to them.
Okay, so Kimberly, in your experience, what are one or two of the most common fears that prevent the people you work with from building their staff's performance and improving the retention and increasing their revenue?
Number one, failure. Fear of failure. That's probably the number one fear. But
This one always comes up when I ask this question. Fear of failure. Go ahead. Fear
of failure. So the other one, this is a big one with learning and development, is that lack of buy-in. So a leader brings me in and says, hey, Kimberly, these are the issues we're encountering. This is my role in it, and this is what I'd like you to do for my team. And when I sit down with the team, they're not buying in for one reason or another. It could be a failure to buy in because they say, we've done this before. We've done it all before. We've had these types of training, and nothing has changed. We've changed, but this hasn't changed or that hasn't changed. So that lack of buy-in. And then finally, investing in a training program or a training problem and seeing the desired results immediately. So again, we're looking at there's some type of problem, we're investing in it, and we're not seeing the results right away. So that's one of the fears. But the reality, again, when I set those expectations to say, this is what you can expect, this is the time that we should be looking at to start to see change, that makes a difference.
When I asked this question, it sounds really obvious, but I have to go ahead and ask it anyway. Why would anybody want to strengthen their staff's performance and improve the retention and the revenue? Why would they want to do that? Share some of your thoughts on that for us, please, Kimberly.
Well, I'll answer it by saying, why would they want to implement a learning and development program? What would be the benefits of that? And number one, when we talk about retention, we want our employees to be satisfied, but more than that, we want them to go above and beyond. We want them to have a passion for the work they're doing. We want them to be driven. We want them to take the opportunities to be creative and to develop new ideas and new processes, not just to think inside that box, but to also think about ways that we can do things differently and achieve even better outcomes. So when we think about implementing a learning and development program, we think about implementing a training program to either resolve issues or to improve our teams. These are all the things I want leaders to think about. What are ways that I can engage my employees? What are some things that I can do to ensure that they're not only solving problems, but they're preventing problems before they happen. So we're not just increasing revenue, we're saving revenue, we're retaining employees, because I'm going to tell you, when you have an effective learning and development program, staff members feel like they've been invested in. Someone cares about their development, their growth, not just for the role that they're in, but beyond. So that helps to retain employees. if I feel like my organization cares about me and cares about my growth and my development and is giving me the tools that I need to be successful, I don't have to scramble for those tools, that's absolutely going to help me want to stay with that organization. I may not want to stay in that role necessarily, but that's always a good thing. And as leaders, we want our folks to grow and to develop and hopefully to bring more to the organization. And then, of course, that workplace satisfaction. We want people to be happy on the job.
Kimberly, it's been a great interview so far. I'm having fun here. Are you having fun?
I'm having a blast.
I can tell that this is your passion, that you absolutely love doing this, and I've got the feeling that you could just stay on here for hours sharing all of these great insights. But let's move on and talk a little bit about you. Can you share, for example, a lesson that you learned earlier on in your career or in your life that still impacts how you do business today? And also, if you could, talk a little bit about your solution. What is it exactly? Does it have a name? Does it have a brand? What made you come up with the idea? Now, I know that was about 3,051 questions, right? But fundamentally, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how it all links to what you're doing today. And if you have any books out there, if you just share a little bit about Kimberly Ferguson, if you could just do that for me. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'll answer the question around lessons learned. One of the early lessons that I learned, and again, working in corporate, I started off and I was working in corporate for about 9 years and moving up steadily while I was there. The thing that I learned right away is to take advantage of opportunity. When opportunity presented itself, I took advantage of it. And even if it were an assignment that I might have frowned at, or an assignment that I thought, this is really not the direction that I thought I was going in, I said, you know what, it's a learning opportunity, and I took advantage of it. And it yielded such great results. I mean, I have so many specific examples of where, in the marketplace, when I was working for a financial publishing company, a well-known financial publishing company, and I was presented with an opportunity to work on its affiliate program. This was back in the early 90s when, that was the thing, right? Or the late 90s, that was the thing, affiliate programs.
Yeah, sure.
And I had that opportunity, but it was so far from what I was hired to do. But I took that opportunity, and it ended up landing me a promotion, which ultimately landed me an opportunity to travel. I was traveling the country on behalf of the organization, doing different workshops, which was a blast in my 20s. I mean, absolute blast, but I learned so much. So a little bit about my backstory. So as I mentioned, I worked at a financial publishing company for 9 years, fresh out of college, moved on. I'm a certified teacher of English and Internet and online technology. So I taught at an alternative high school for some years. Then I moved on to work in higher education, where I was doing some training there for one of their systems. And all the while I was working at the school, while I was working at the college, I was doing learning and development, either as part of my role or in some role, some voluntary role on the side, some side business. I was always working in learning and development in some form, and just really developed a passion for helping adults align their passion, their purpose, their competencies, and aligning all of those pieces with relevant action. And that's the big piece. And that's a piece I talk about quite a bit in my book, Marketing to Be Strategic. I talk about taking action, relevant action, to yield meaningful results. And so what I do through my business is I collect clients to a clear understanding of what their needs are. So when we were talking before about the leaders, understanding what their needs are, doing that gap analysis, where are we, where would we like to be, what lies in the gap, so that they can create a realistic plan, a measurable plan that gives them actionable steps to get to that success that they're seeking. So those are, when you look at my business and what I do, it's all about that. It's all about giving people help in devising that real plan. And then I'm part of that, hopefully, in working with those leaders. I become part of that solution, because then we'll implement training programs to help their staff develop and grow. So in my business, I've been working my business for some years now, and I work with amazing organizations. And I do tons of workshops. I do soft skills workshops like customer service skills, leadership development, communication, conflict resolution, problem solving. So those types of workshops, well, again, all around helping the employees, or giving the employees the tools that they need to be most successful. Just a couple of other projects that I'm working on. You mentioned Strategic Minds. The show is strategicminds.tv. And it's all around empowerment. It's all around getting tools and information, talking about challenges, talking about how we're overcoming obstacles. And I have experts from a number of different fields coming on the show to share their experiences to help the viewers get better at what they do.
Wow, that was a lot, Kimberly. Yeah,
I know, right?
I know, but it's fantastic. It's really interesting just to sit back and listen to that whole path that you've taken throughout your life and your career. So, unfortunately, we are coming towards the end of the show. So,
no.
Yeah, I know. Just getting warmed up here, just starting to settle in. I've got my feet up on my desk. I've got my glass of water. I'm chilled out. I'm here with my girl, Kimberly Ferguson, and it's almost time to go. But we've still got time for a couple more questions. So, in terms of final thoughts, what's one thing that we may not have covered today that you could share with someone who wants to strengthen their staff's performance, improve retention, and increase revenue?
The one thing that I would share is be open to getting assistance. And it doesn't have to be from Kimberly A. Ferguson, but be open to the idea of getting some help from another resource. If you're encountering a challenge with your team, seek help, seek assistance, but also involve your team. Make your team part of the solution. And I think that's huge, because once they feel like they have a part of the solution, it's a lot easier to get the buy-in.
And finally, Kimberly, if there is a leader out there, leaders of small to mid-sized organizations, or even an individual or a professional representing an organization such as a CEO or an executive, an HR director or an event organizer or any other types of key business decision makers who are listening to the show right now, and they want to know more. They want to know, where can they find Kimberly? If that's the case, how would they be able to connect with you?
There are a number of ways to find me. You can find me at K-Ferg Speaks. That's K-F-E-R-G Speaks.com. You can also check out my show, Strategic Minds, at strategicminds.tv. I can be found on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm K-Ferg Speaks there. Let me also give you my email address. That's info, I-N-F-O, at K-Ferg, K-F-E-R-G.com. And for those that contact me, I am offering a special right now. I have career assessments, career insights, career assessments that for a limited time, I'm doing those for free. So for those organizations that are looking to work with me and do business with me, I will be offering those career insights assessments to your team.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.